All right. And Gorka's online?
He's apparently said thanks to that. I don't know how.
Okay.
He's in the Hangout, for what it's worth. Do we have audio? Is anyone there? Hello?
Hold on, let me check.
Gorka, if you're...
Oh, Kurt needs...
Hold on.
Oh.
Are you in the Hangout, Kurt?
Yeah.
I don't see you.
New one? Had to restart again.
If we don't see you, then maybe you're not.
He's hanging out by himself.
Oh, there's 4 or 5 people there.
Oh, still in the old one? Yeah.
Is this the new one? No? You posted it.
Send
Just a few...
IRC channel?
Yep.
My clock is still Pacific time, so it's like,
Oh.
Yeah.
it should be right now. It's not 8.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, wow.
Should we be waiting on you all while you go run your errands in the middle of the day?
Uh-huh. Alright.
Alright. We should be good.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, in there?
Yep, we can hear you.
Alright, good. The HA active topic.
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, I can. Great.
Okay.
That's good.
So, yeah, can you kick off and I think this was basically just a report on where things are.
Yeah.
But if you can just take it, whatever you need, if we could go talk active.
Okay, this should be quick because, like you said, this is mostly a status update. Regarding the APA races, we are still working on some of them, but most of the ones that are ready for review are still waiting for ICE to look at them. So I would like to ask if people can have a look at them and we can get them merged because they've been waiting there for a while. The next spec is the job distribution. I have updated the spec with a completely different approach, but it should be easy to follow. It's nothing complicated, and patches should follow within probably next week. And as for tools, the DLM, and probably Michal, I don't know if he was, yeah, I see him there. Okay, he's probably able to update on that topic since he and BlueX have been working on that. I don't know how that one is.
Yeah, so with BLM, we have the initial patch merged. The missing piece is the starting the coordinator with the services, and also all the patches replacing the normal logs with the tools logs. So the problem here that BlueX is working on right now is that file driver in tools isn't 100% compatible with Python 3. So he's trying to work that out in tools, and that's basically it. So patches are posted, most of them, and just need to be reviewed. I can update the spec tracking etherpad with the patches, make sure that all of them are there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been helping me at least being able to see all the set of patches that are needed for each one. So yeah, I think that'd be useful.
Okay, I think that's basically it. There's not much to say at this moment. Yes.
Yes. So what's
To review it. Get some things on there.
Like we've done with the past ones, get a couple chords on each one.
so what's blocking us with this active is the tools piece and the job distribution piece, which Gorka is working on, right?
Yes. And then we will also have to add the changes to the cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give it another look at the auto-fencing to see if it's actually needed or if we can do something easier. I have to give another go at that spec.
So what I thought of is to try to do that in Mitaka in as an experimental feature, because this auto fencing is very complicated to get right in the current state of the. It was one of the tools, one of the Oslo libraries for threading.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to. I don't think it's it will happen that having that merge in Mitaka. So I think looking at how reviews and how the work is progressing, I think it's probably will only get the API races and the job distribution part patching, and so we'll only be halfway there, I think.
So then,
Distribution spec has some flaws.
Make sure he can hear you. You want either come here or.
So I've only just started looking at it and realised there is a completely new approach. This new job distribution spec has some fairly hefty flaws. Overriding the host is something you can already do, and it has so many side effects that are really quite painful, which is why I really like the original approach. Do we know why the cluster approach was dropped?
No, it's not that it's wrong. It's that, let's say, it's going to take like at least 3 releases. If you look at the previous patch for the spec, it's going to take 3 releases to get rename of the host fields to cluster because of the rolling upgrades. Also, it's going to make changes in basically almost every single file, which will in turn make more possible introducing new bugs and make backporting almost result always in a merge conflict, because it's going to change a lot of files.
Because overriding the host name most definitely introduces bugs. We do it now, and it causes all sorts of problems. I can go through them and I'll put them on the spec. But it's a severely flawed approach, which is why I really like the cluster approach, which was...
but isn't
Why do you think...
approach we don't
the explicit cluster approach. Having an explicit variable and only using it in the place it needs to be used.
Mm-hmm. I haven't reviewed the new Gorka spec completely, but from what I understand is that he wants to keep the host field as a cluster, and then add a field called node to indicate cluster nodes, subsequent nodes.
Correct.
And they say that has side effects that ripple all through all of the existing code. That causes bugs.
No, but then we will in the cleanup we will fix the problems we have with using the host for the cleanups. And
no, this isn't the cleanup. This is things like reporting to the scheduler and reporting services.
Yeah, but I'm updating all that stuff for the reporting to be done in the other table. So basically, just imagine that instead of saying host, I'm calling it cluster, because it's going to have the same effect. The nodes will be reporting to a different table for each of the nodes, we will have its individual heartbeat there, and host will be grouping all the nodes.
Yeah, I'm far from convinced this is a good way forward. I mean, I only just discovered and just started reading it, but I'm far from convinced on this being an approach. It's a whole bunch of new stuff that's changing an awful lot of existing stuff that just works.
But I think the cluster approach is kind of similar. It would require almost changes compared with the approach you're proposing now.
Yeah, basically what I'm proposing now, it's not different than the other one, except that I'm not renaming host to cluster. That's the only difference I'm making. Everything else should work the same.
I'm going to have to go through the spec in detail, but I think there's problems there. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
You're giving a job that I think you've got issues there, and I think the changes you're going to have to make to fix them are going to be as large as fixing the cluster one.
No, not from what I can gather, but if there's something, I'll wait for your input. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to follow up with the spec reviews to review it.
And I'm trying to start on them now. So I've only just started. So I'll only say, go ahead and we're doing that because I think it's broken.
Okay. No, if it's broken, I appreciate you pointing out where it's broken, so I can maybe go back to the other solution or look for a fix. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So my question would be, if we don't think this will if we don't think this will get into Mitaka even in an experimental state, then maybe we should abstain from merging next patches. Because, for example, TOOS ones won't be useful without without whole solution.
There's still the API. There's still some API race.
API race conditions are totally parallel. So
yeah.
So we can do them. We should do them.
And Michal, node distribution could also be merged because after all, it's going to need 2 releases to clean up the database changes. So in this one, we could just be changed, and it's backward compatible. So in this one, we could be just changing the way the heartbeats are being reported, and leave it at that. I mean.
Okay, so there's no. So the cleanup that isn't a dependency for the job distribution, right?
Sorry?
Cleanup patches aren't the dependency for the job distribution.
No, it's the other way around. So
okay.
We could get job distribution without the cleanup, and the cleanup will go in next release.
But we won't advertise that we have merged the job distribution patches because they won't be actually working when we have multiple nodes, right?
Right. Yes. I have added in the new configuration option that it's node name. It in the help section it explicitly says that this is not working yet. The active functionality is not working, and to clear that up. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just not sure what's the best approach. If it's okay to merge something that we say explicitly isn't working yet, but we have this dead code.
No, it's working. I mean, it will be reporting correctly. We've just changed the way we report. So.
Okay, this seems fair.
But anyway, after the spec reviews and the patches are up, we can decide whether it's in time to merge or if we leave it for the next one. Yeah.
So probably when the patches will be up, that will be best time for the decision.
Yeah.
It's a little late now in the cycle.
Okay. Yep.
from my perspective, this was identified as one of the priorities, at least. But if we can't get everything in place, I don't want to rush anything in. But if we can get pieces of it ready, so that
Okay.
that'd be good to have it ready enough that it won't be a bigger issue in Newton.
Anything else, Gorka?
No, nothing else. Thanks.
Thanks, Gorka.
Yep, thanks.
Was there another one that we might note, Gorka, or was that? No, that looks like the only one.
That might be it. That might be it for.
Okay. Then let's go back up on the list of topics a little to where we left off with Nova and tracking Nova attachments in Cinder. So I think this is what had caused some confusion in that we have different behavior by different backends that I didn't understand one of them that whether Cinder should care about the attachments that happen on the host, or if we just need to care about attachments to the host and then what they do with it from there.
The problem with not caring is that that breaks a lot of existing API compatibility with Horizon, with Nova, with Cinder, and everything. So John actually was working on coming up with a fix to this whole thing, and we kind of brainstormed it a little bit. So
Okay.
We're exploring some options with respect to this.
So, but the one reason was when the Nova host goes away, like an evacuate, and we no longer have any ability to get that attachment from Nova, we have no way to clean up attachments. We have no way to force detach from the Cinder side if whoever attaches us, Nova in this case, but someday it'll be Nova not needed or ironic or whatever. How do we detach if the other end is gone and can't pass us an attachment?
That's kind of what we talked about at the end of the Nova discussion last items, is that for Newton, I was going to add the connector information into the attachment so that way we could do.
Right, and then
We have that information.
We have the information, we're just not storing it right now.
so we need to store it.
And we need to be able to update it for live migration and shell.
Okay.
That's the trick, and why it didn't happen from Mitaka, because it needed a new API. I just had too many things.
We can start storing the database though anytime, right?
No, because that needs to be done at attach volume time.
And we need to be getting that
We
at
need to
attached
be getting
volume.
it at attach volume. So there's some issues to work out. John had another idea that we might be able to find out the right attachment editor/connection time. I need to figure that part out. If we can do that, then we can store it in the right place.
Without Nova.
I'm working on it right now. I still just can't but I'm just taking, so we already have the initiator IQN information on our side. So I can store that.
Yeah.
Whatever. On the detach, for evacuate and stuff like that, live migration. Yeah, so we add an API call that.
Yep.
So the only that is we have to come up with a method to give a reference or an ID of what it is. So I think what I'll do is I'll add an attachment ID column.
We have the attachment ID in the attachments table.
Yeah, but that's different because you're using the host and the instance ID format.
To find it, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that. I want to make that go away. Right? So make that go away and actually give a unique ID in the database. So do the auto create so that I'll use that and just reference that. We'll know then, for example,
moving attachment ID 5 from
This connector to that
node
connector.
A to node B.
Yep.
So we'll have all of them. And then, if nothing else, it's just good. It's just good forethought for things that may come up.
Yeah.
And it also solves all these attachments.
Right.
Just keep talking about
Powers
it.
detached, all of that stuff.
So
Yeah.
you're about to fix it. Right?
Yeah.
Um,
And the ironic case where the end user doesn't detach before they give up the node, right? The volume will still be marked as attached, so now the admin will have a way to correctly have sender detach that.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I still don't agree with some of the stuff. It really doesn't matter. It's cool. You can still use it.
Well, we'll have enough information that we should be able to detach it, considering that we control the life cycle of the machine.
Yeah.
So once the machine's on provision, we can just go nuke the attachment pretty easily, or if it's been powered down, like shelves, then we can do the same thing. I don't see why we
Because we'll
can't.
have all the initiator side stuff.
Yeah, and we have to have all the initiators stored in Ironic. We'll have it all there, and then we also have to keep target information handy in case there's a problem or
Okay.
someone's not using Cinder necessarily.
So you guys are already planning on keeping all that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Got everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the proposed specification that has not been approved yet calls for keeping all the information. Basically, Cinder integration for us would just be a driver to manage the interactions within the workflow.
Yeah.
So if we get all this at initialized connection, do we care if it gets passed in and attached? Is that something we still want, or does that go away?
It's different, yeah.
It's attached, yes. You need to take a look at it.
We want to store that at attached time.
There's two pieces. Well, that's the problem. It depends on which way we're trying to go. There's the idea that they have to change that all of these. Yeah. Well, that's what we were talking about in the joint session. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be. It's going to definitely be. No.
Well, yeah, I think the tenants interchange microversions and stuff that gets done here in Cinder. I mean, it makes that surface stumbling thing is all this backwards and making sure it works on multiple nodes, and that's one way to solve that. If we're changing the API, then of course.
So my proposal doesn't require.
There's no.
But microversions would. So my idea is to actually just not share targets. Actually create a new target for each attached call. So instead of the IQ and the just the prefix, volume name, you have to come up with some scheme to say what additional attachment you need. That's the only thing. Nova side, if we do it correctly, I think we can do it in such a way that Nova doesn't care. With the only exception being what does brick do with the initiator session. How does it do with in and not? The only thing I can think of for that is to add a new API to Cinder where brick can go and ask Cinder to query the database to see what the reference count of the.
Well, I think what we ended up saying was Nova would call the Cinder APIs.
Wait a minute, wait. I think the easy thing to do here is do your thing, make the new API lightweight, not small multi-patch unless you've got the version that you've got in the code. But you don't. No one ever has to deal with the old case for multi-patch.
But what I'm okay.
And we can deadline multi-patch that patch. We know what the old thing. I don't think that costs.
No, I think that's I'm not worried about that. I think that problem is easier to solve. I don't see that problem.
So
What I'm saying is
the cleanup thing only comes up if you didn't all do that.
No. If you have two different instances on it,
On the same host.
Cinder volume, the same backend, it'll share session.
So we only create one target. We'll let you move that target around. Multi-attach is really the only problem. But my point is we don't need the microversion to solve the. We don't need the microversion to solve the Nova. What I'm saying is that we can be more clever on the Cinder side and make it so that Nova doesn't have to know and doesn't care.
Yeah, but they all should have been used in that.
Right, exactly. So but what I'm saying is, when in the case of multi-attach, the Cinder version is the only thing that matters, right? Nova doesn't necessarily know anything about multi-attach. That's the way, in my opinion, it shouldn't. Nova should just say, hey, I want to make an attachment, and if multi-attach is enabled on Cinder, it'll work. If not, it'll fail like it does today.
Can you pass that reference counter back at the bottom end of initialized connection?
Okay, we're hopping almost.
Sorry.
So I don't know.
Because then Brick will see that.
Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever we want, right? I mean, I can look at, once it starts flushing out, we can figure that out. The problem that I'm having, though, is if you don't want Brick to talk to Cinder, right, then there's a problem because the issue is if you do have multi-attach and you do have an IQN, an initiator IQN, how do you know when you can do ISCSI, ADM, delete session, in session, stuff like that if you're not querying it outside of Brick?
That's why I suggested adding the reference count in the return back.
Return back from.
Initialized connection, which that stuff gets saved in the DDM, which is used to call it disconnect volume in Brick.
I don't think that's the right place to do it. Initialized connection is the beginning. Well, okay, so you're saying, but if you return it at initialized connection, it doesn't you.
Actually, that data would change. So yeah.
What if you did it on? Oh, you know what we could do.
Begin
So this
detach.
would be an API page, but do it on
Begin detach would give us that info.
So we could do that.
Yeah.
We could return a counter that's or a all done true or false.
Yeah. Remove
the
or delete target or whatever we want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as the volume is put into detaching state, you can't get another attachment to come through. The API says sorry.
Not for that volume, but for a new volume on the same backend.
The new volume? That doesn't matter. That's yeah, that's completely different.
We only care about the target IQN for the volume that we have. So,
Volume A has two attachments on the host, and we want to remove
so
it.
when you create a volume, when you do initialized connection on volume, right, what you end up with is IQN, CWA,
Write larger, please.
what?
Write larger, please.
The camera can't pick it up.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to go over here, and what Cinder's going to do is it's going to create an iSCSI target. Okay? An iSCSI target is just simply IQN, IQN, blah, 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 volume. Right? You get a unique one of these for every volume, even if it's on a host well, some drivers do things differently. Yeah. But you guys already know how to manipulate this advantage, right?
Well, not sort of Rick's being told to be out, right? We turn it to connection, but to actually know when to go, like, read the rest of the session.
No, that's not the brick. That's an isolated, it's an isolated unit.
Yeah, because we're doing that particular volume with zero brick nowadays. And now, we get a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. We're the same way. It's the same argument.
But the LUN ID in that case uniquely identifies it. Yes. The combination of the IQN plus the LUN ID makes it unique.
Yeah, it's the same base IQN, but it's appended at the home name. That's the
Or LUN ID, which is what we do.
So like if you go to like that path.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it'll have like one whatever. So that's what you mean by one.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So the problem that I was trying to figure out was on the compute node where you have disk by path, right? And you've got IQN 310. When you get into the thing of trying to do multi-attach and try and share this guy, that's what we were talking about the reference counter. So if you go this route and you do that, then you have to do some kind of reference counter or something like that to know when you can actually delete that.
No, we were. We're going to add it to begin detaching. We couldn't do reference count because if you're not using the LUN ID as a unique identifier, and if you're only using the IQN, which would cause a lot of problems. So.
I thought we said we were going to do export for the multi-touch. You get two connected, two different IDs.
For drivers that can do that.
Oh, okay.
So the problem is
Right.
we have kind of a mess, right? So my idea of doing, hey, I'll just create a new target for every patch, regardless of whether it's the same volume, same compute, or not. That works great for half-os.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it turns out the other half
Doesn't work.
Can't
Yeah.
do that, right? So
Yes.
So the problem is we've got this imbalance. We can't have the drivers work.
Yeah. We have two different backends that work completely differently. One has the problem, the other one doesn't. So.
Okay, that would be everything.
This is why I thought it seemed like a no issue, not a cinder issue, and why it seems strange to me to keep track of where Nova attaches it once we expose it to the compute host is, you know,
You have block
I
manipulation.
expose it to that initiator, and then it should be up to that host to decide whether they're still using it or not, and just tell me I'm done with it.
I know, but sometimes forget that it's using anything at all. That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
What's it?
No, but sometimes forget it's using anything at all.
Again, though, that seems like a Nova issue. Not,
So I agree with your assessment. I mean, 100%. I've said that since this came up, right? It is a Nova problem. It absolutely does.
No, if you just give a copy.
Oh, you mean the image? You mean copy image to volume?
Yeah, that on
Yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. So if you guys are talking about doing
No, we're not doing multi-attach for boot volumes.
well, no.
I don't think we support that.
it still comes down to the basic thing of whether it either needs to be exposed to that initiator or it doesn't. It seems like it's up to them to tell us what to use.
Very interested in multi-touch and boot volume.
Well,
Very, very interesting.
But that's different. That'll work the same way.
Yeah.
It's not, that's not really any different.
Yeah, they wrote their own nice
When you
driver.
copy image to volume and stuff like that
Yeah.
on a cinder node, how does cinder deal with it? What I'm saying is, I don't think the cinder node is not today should have any idea how to do multi-attach or any idea that there is one.
Agreed.
Correct.
So what I'm saying is from Cinder's perspective, when you attach to a Cinder node, so even if you have a volume attached to an instance, and you do something really stupid, which this is a great point about multi-attach that you point out, then you say, hey, copy image to volume on this volume, which happens to be in use by this instance over here. The this guy's database is running on, you're going to attach it on the Cinder node, and you're going to DD all those bytes of that image across to that font, and just kill that guy. So you do that, right? But the thing is on the Cinder side, you can't, at the same time you're doing that with one, you can't do another Cinder attach. We're saying a Cinder won't do, Cinder nodes won't do more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I remember the problem before we couldn't decide whether you put any attachment at all, if you have those Nova attach and the copy image keyboard involved, really the problem early on, because you can decide, okay, whether there's still attachment left, you have
Right.
need to really go along. There's an issue there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we want to put guardrails up around some of those calls that we know just destroy the volume.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of, it's kind of the multi-attach thing is.
Besides that.
Guys, otherwise, you end up with, you want to do this.
Well, I'm still yet to find an open source, a free open source file system. Just use and make this work. I don't think anybody else has.
I think we did, yeah.
Oh yeah, you could put Luster on it. Luster.
Luster.
Oh, Luster?
I found another. I think we had a guy that found another one. We have it on our wiki page. I forgot all of them. And of course, we can't get it here, so. It was Sean who did it, right? Yeah.
List of Linux cluster files.
Cluster or distributed.
XFS. They can't do it? GPFS. Oh, GPFS. Yeah, that was it.
But that's not
That's
considered
not flavor.
open source, yeah.
Oh, we had a topic. Too late. Because you already know this stuff.
So, we tell Ildiko that we thought it would be good for Nova to keep track of the references and take care of all that, but the Cinder would do it for multi-attacks. Weren't we having that discussion a month ago? Said, you know, architecturally, we shouldn't care about what connections. Nova should determine when it's time to call terminate connection based on the number of attaches, which is exactly what we're saying here. But that.
Well, so to back up a second. So this is the thing that I get kind of confused on. No one can call terminate connection whenever the hell it wants, right? We should. So that's our deal. To figure out what to do with that. If we actually do our deal. I'm okay with that. We can figure out how to make that work. The problem that I'm talking about is actually when you destroy the ISO system, you log out of the ISO system, you destroy it.
Which Nova does before it calls terminate connection.
Right. And that's the problem.
That is the problem. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But it still means we need to have tracking of the number of connections so we know when to delete the export.
Well, it kind of doesn't, because if Nova does, if you can get Nova to play ball, as Sean pointed out, this is actually a Nova bug, because what should happen is Nova should look at that and say, hey, I have this many connections, I shouldn't actually log out, and I should never call any connection, because I'm still using it.
Right. That's different from saying we don't care when they call terminate connection. They can only call terminate connection when we're ready to remove the export. And they call it every single time they detach a multi-attached volume.
Yeah.
We would delete the export the first time, and then they would delete it for the other effect. the other instances they wish to stay attached, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either they take care of everything, or if we want them to be able to call terminate connection as many times as they want to for each instance of a multi-attach, we have to track.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I was saying is we do have to do something on our side, even though we shouldn't.
Right.
We shouldn't care.
Right.
Um,
Either they have all the logic, or they have some of it and we have some of it. I mean, there's no way around
right.
that. We need to know when to remove the export. And Rick needs to know when to kill the iSCSI session.
Rick already knows if there are other attachments coming through that session. I think it does
In the
something
case
kind of-
where you're
but
multiplexing.
not for that one volume though.
No, that was the problem. That's the problem. The problem is nobody, right now, nobody knows. That's the problem. And the bigger problem is the two patches that went in, they just created a split brain scenario, which what you're talking about, again. Then you have a split brain where this guy thinks it's this and this guy thinks it's that.
I believe in the disconnect part for iSCSI, it looks to see if there's anything coming from that target portal, because it'll reuse that session for multiple volumes from that target portal. So it won't call iSCSI admin log out until they're all gone.
Yeah, so that's if you have like multiple volumes sharing a
Yeah.
session. But
Yes.
One volume, one session. But it's-
Rick doesn't know either way.
Yeah, right.
It has no way of determining either way.
Yeah, so
That's what I'm saying. So let's be clear on what I'm saying. So let's take the hardest use case that we have, which today is you have a compute node, right? And you have instance 1 and instance 2. And you have Seawall is out here, and you have multi-attached like this, right? The reality of how this looks, depending on how you go about it, is you have a single iSCSI session, a single shared iSCSI session to the compute node. So the problem is, in the current model, you go and you detach instance 2, or you delete instance 2, or whatever. The problem that I'm getting at, that I'm describing that we need to solve, is how do you know when you can actually delete this session? Right? I don't care about the target stuff. That's another problem.
Yeah.
First, this is the big problem. And to Sean's point, it shouldn't really be our problem. I mean, if
Nova
the
sees
attached code,
instance 1 is still using it, then don't even talk to Cinder.
right,
Still in use.
exactly. If the attachment code and the EDM tracking in Nova is better, so it would just handle these things for us.
So now I think because we've been down this way long enough, I don't think we can change that, what it seems like.
Change the Nova code.
Well,
Yeah, the answer is to go fix the Nova code. I think maybe we can get it done.
The problem is I can't, I mean, I try to see.
Try swimming through BDM is.
Well, it's not. So Matt and some other folks made a lot of improvements. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is I have a hard time figuring out all the process and stuff.
Yeah, it is very difficult.
And
Well, we also need a coherent story because Ildikov has been working on these, and we've been telling her
Relatedly,
Well, I'm not saying
who's we? Who's the we that has been helping you do?
mostly Walt and myself, Matt Raven, and we certainly
we've been having open discussions
try to
about
keep
this
eyes on this and bring people's attention to it. So it's not.
It's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Well, we can link up with her again if since she's already invested in this,
Yeah.
if she's interested. and propose some of this, that's absolutely fine. I know in the joint thing, we talked about actually just doing unique targets. That turns out is actually a problem and won't really work. So we have to go back and solve it. So in my mind, that happens in N. Sorry. But I'd rather do it correctly and clean this stuff up.
They're not going to land everything till N anyway. So
And they're not enabling it.
I don't think that's a big deal. But it is, I think, good for us to have our coherent design of what we think should be done. If it's Nova should track all this, we should know that and make sure we say that. Because we did go back and forth a bit. And you know, you did not want to do that, do any tracking on the Cinder side, but then we acquiesced because it's like, well, let's try to get this in and do something else later. It's not getting in, so maybe now is the time to go back and say, let's do it the way we want to do it, which is Cinder shouldn't have to care.
The answer is no. I call this, what if you run Seawall and same node where you run Nova, and you happen to have some attachments caused by Seawall?
Yeah. Cinder has
Well,
to track.
so my proposal for that stuff is in the Cinder API, calls like copy image to volume to image, volume log, backups, all those things. Those things actually check and they say, hey, unlike these other attach calls, I am not going to allow this call to go through and call attach if it's already attached. I know some people don't like that.
But if you still have grid getting involved in isolated sessions.
Oh, so you don't think that, not you haven't created something.
No. Like, different volume. Same story. So like,
It'll have a different.
On this node, and then if you run Seawall in the same node and you try to copy an image to a different volume, it happens to the same backend. It'll recycle that ISO.
It'll recycle anything, but it's going to a different device. It's going to a different disk by drive.
There's some protection now in Brick for that. It has logic that when you have the same session with one protection scenario, and because now Nova and Cinder are using Brick, you can specify like your lock file thing. So Brick will walk around doing the detached stuff. Okay. So you're kind of protected. So it's Brick stages there. Yeah. Okay.
There's a common lock, whereas before it was.
So you do have a unique one for each volume.
We have one IQN for like the array, right? Right. So the target IQN and then each volume is the one. So right, like IQN -1.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying I don't quite get what's
So the problem is before they had that nice shared blocking thing, like this would happen in DevStack, but run in parallel, right? Nova would go and say, oh hey, the session is connecting, terminate, log out the session, whereas Cinder might be sitting in the recycle the session. So there's a bunch of, there were a bunch of issues with that. But I think now it's not, shouldn't be.
No. We're all in the same group, okay? Let's start with what we're doing.
Not everyone.
Yeah. I mean, fiber works the same way.
Fibers are very similar.
I'm not concerned about fiber. I am concerned about NFS. I am concerned about those, but I don't know.
I don't think there's hard problems to solve it. It's just that one of the reasons that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the pieces that I know the least. I don't know RBD or all.
Oh, because you call, just call me anything down.
full mountain could be done in part-time, but not the unmounted time, anyway. So if you just full mountain, it might be that. If the unmounted teams lay down in the middle of the track, that's 40%. That's what it's thinking is.
And then there's, RBD is
Yeah,
probably fairly easy for the actual problems of like we don't track anything on that really at all.
RBD, we don't actually go to the because it's all with problems. There's just
Well, yeah.
What was that, Aaron?
It's in QE. There's a decline that just talks to RBD.
No, yeah, but what I mean is the way that works. Isn't the way that works? You have to, you basically have an RBD protocol connection.
But there's no connection. Because it doesn't actually have it.
Right. So what I'm getting at is I don't think this problem exists. There's nothing to clean anything up because there's just a gateway or pathway or whatever you want to call it that just talks to you itself.
To help. Skinner. So the answer is we want Nova to decide when to call terminate connection. And we want Nova does Brick already
Brick is called before terminate connection is
so we
called.
need Nova to decide when to tell Brick.
We need
Yeah,
Nova to
session.
decide when to call disconnect volume.
And when to call terminate. If that's
Yes. It can call
But John
terminate connection
doesn't like-
any number of times. Right? It's the job of the driver to do the right thing at that point, but removing
but that's different. So now you're saying we also need Cinder to keep track of the number of multi-attached connections.
we already do.
Yeah, and that's not going to change.
So wait, we are going to keep the number of connections so that the driver needs to know when you get terminate connection or when not you should actually terminate connection
Nova's going to call it anyway. Terminate connection.
multiple times for the same volume.
With multi-attached.
And
Yes.
so how do we know when we should actually do it? Please attachment to another separate row.
Yeah.
Second manager's handling it. The driver doesn't need to know, right?
Yeah. Basically, 1 and 2 is always Brick.
No, would be a Brick.
These are Nova's responsibilities. How Nova does it, whether it calls Brick or whatever.
Doesn't matter.
So my point is this is what the flow should be. That works for everyone.
Correct.
Definitely have to not call 3 first.
Right, which is what we are in this situation.
But I would still have a problem with some session
Yeah.
by sender and no one doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a tricky thing about branching it out. So there could be
So what I'm
other
saying,
connections.
right, so what I'm saying is solve that different ways by not allowing.
What do you
Because it
mean
doesn't
by
make any
not
sense.
allowing?
Huh?
What do you mean by not allowing? Well,
So-
not allowing another.
Yeah, so if you have, so there's a handful of Cinder commands, Cinder API calls that result in attaching volume to a Cinder, right? And they are backup, image to volume, and volume to image, migrate, clone for some.
Retype can turn into a migrate, so it's basically
We
a
need to
migrate.
disable that crap. So my point is, if an attached call originates from any of these, and the status of the volume is attached, then we just say no.
Yeah.
Can't.
Correct.
But it could have other volumes, like, because like if they say like yours,
It's a different volume though. It's not attached.
So that's a different part. In that case, if it's a different volume, it's okay. You don't have to worry. That's already protected.
But that was the issue with the copy image to volume stuff at that time. I was struggling with way back.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I think maybe from the side that we couldn't decide whether it was still anything attached, and we don't know. So I ended up just don't log out at all. I don't know. But maybe if you don't know, I think maybe it's
So that's, as far as I know, that's what's fixed in OS break. It isn't limiting the OS break from deciding when it's safe to detach the Linux in the session and stuff. It's pretty solid.
Okay, so I remember you actually fixed something in that area. Okay. All right.
I'm sure I did, but I don't remember it.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure.
Okay, so I'll get that.
Let me know if there's something that's.
Okay, because I remember when I was looking at that, I tested that out, and actually was doing more of that, and it's like, well, why don't you log on? I don't know. And with Tinder, I don't have the knowledge of Nova. So, I hope that I can check.
I think with Rick, I think it's different. Because that was, what we campaigned Nova versus Cinder, they were different code paths. I think that's.
Oh, that's right. It was a bug in Nova, but we had already fixed it. Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of sounds familiar.
It's
been a while though.
Where it says, check if there's any left, log out, otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Maybe.
It's not a problem. Yeah, ignore it. I think I know what you're talking about now. Lunch?
Yeah, it's about that time.
Sure. All right.
Whether